So today, I was drawn to a couple of texts, but in particular that Joshua reading that Dave just read. I was like, this is going to be our focused lesson for today. This is going to be great because the reading was from the gospel would have been the parable of the two brothers. Perhaps you've heard it known as the parable of the prodigal son. But I thought, let's talk about that one on Wednesday, and then let's separate that so that when the confirmation students are gathering here on a Wednesday night, they'll get that. But then let's pivot, and we'll talk about having the gospel where, we heard about the sheep and the 99 and all of that stuff. So that was the reading that we had today instead. Because the Joshua reading, something about that just immediately clicked for me. I'm like, this is a great reading. Wow, the Israelites have just reached the promised land, and now they're finally experiencing all this abundant blessing from God. They've been rewarded for their patience after 40 years, despite a little bit of grumbling in the wilderness. In my head, I was thinking, wow, this is going to connect so perfectly to our own wilderness wanderings. These last 2 years of pandemic and modified worship habits and how we've had to be able to adapt to everything. So I planned this theme off of the idea of, well, now what? And I thought this was going to make a great connection. How these 2 years we've seen a lot of changes, and how, again, not all of us have made it. Just like Moses dying before entering the promised land, some have moved away, some have found a new church home, some have died. But conversely, in our community, some have moved here. Some have found faith as a church home, both in person and online, including the folks who will be gathering this afternoon. And then, of course, we've had new births. We've had baptisms, and again, not in my family this time. I still have a 3-year-old, folks. That's no news here, folks. Not making a birth announcement today. You were all wondering, though. But as I read the Joshua reading now, 2 months after picking up that Joshua reading and looking at it for the first time, I realized that things had changed. So I'm going to warn you, this is the season of Lent, and I might not reconcile everything in your head today. Like you might leave and be thinking, wow, he didn't just wrap that all up in a nice little bow like he sometimes does. I might throw out some things that are going to provoke deeper thinking and reflection, and on Wednesday or Thursday you might be like, wow, he did it again. So I'm going to offer up some dissonance. I'm going to offer up some stuff that lacks resolution because, let's be honest, the Bible isn't always easy to reconcile either. And that's okay. It's important to be challenged and self-aware when the Bible does that to us. For example, why did I have a sudden reaction now to the Joshua reading 2 months later? Well, the Israelites no longer had manna. They ate the crops of the land of Canaan that year. And now normally I think I would read this and I would think, oh, the providence of God, all this wandering, and finally the people get to this settled promised land. But now I read this with a different lens. Who planted the crops? Whose land did they take to claim this promised land? Then I wondered, well, why have I never cared to ask that question before, and why am I caring to ask the question now?